Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the session. In this session, we are going to cover the budget and financial account management system that we implement, or solution that we implemented for Illinois. And the first part of the presentation, Robin is going to go over their legacy system, some of the processes and the screens that they have real quick. And then I'm going to take it from there, where we are headed and what we are developing actually for them. With that, now you're on, Robin.
Okay. Hi, I'm Robin. I'm from Illinois DOT, and we have a legacy system we call MMI. It's for the Maintenance Management Information System. MMI was created and developed in 1986. It was designed by our operations engineers, and it was developed by in-house programmers from our IT department. We had other interfaces and other modules come into MMI in around 1988, and BOA was one of those. BOA is our balance of accounts module, and that's what we're going to show you today. It's on a DEC-VAX mainframe. If you don't know what that is, it's 30 years old, and it has an open VMS system, and it has, the database is a hierarchical database. So we had some issues and challenges dealing with that database. We want to move our budgeting to Agile, and
That was me.
That was you? Okay. So what they're doing is they're developing something that can handle our budgeting. The programming language on that DEC-VAX is VAX COBOL, which is like a mutated COBOL IMS kind of language. And what we did was we wanted something to replace our legacy system since it was getting old. So what we wanted, the modules that we got to replace our legacy system were the system foundation. We got resources module for our inventory and our labor. We have MMS for our accomplishment and reporting of all of our activities and cost. We have the fleet module, because our old system, our legacy system, is the official fleet system for our department. And we are adding the BOA, which is balance of accounts, and contract management. All right, so this is the first screen on our mainframe. It's very, it's difficult to maneuver from. It's a key system, so you have to maneuver using tabs and keys. We keep track of our budget by fiscal year and appropriation objects. Our appropriation objects are all coded. The 1,200 you see up there is for contractual services. So we divide it by contractual services, commodities, equipment, operations, things like that. We also keep track, you'll see on the screen, team section numbers and names. We use a lot of codes, and that's another reason we want to move forward to Agile. The 501, 513, those are team section names, which are our admin units. We keep track of our budgets by each admin unit so they can track it at the time of use in the yards. And if you'll look here, we have an appropriation allotment that shows the budget for that admin unit. Then we have ident allotment, which is what's been obligated so far. We have different levels. We have the appropriation object, the expenditure category, which categorizes all of our costs by contract or by vendor. And that's what the ident allotment is. And then the unobligated balance left over that's not obligated as of yet. The next screen we have is our budget allocation for expenditure categories. The categories are their text fields. This one says Granger's, which is actually a vendor. And so they can, in the district offices, they can create these expenditure categories themselves. It's not in a table or anything. We're going to try to move forward so we can standardize that a little bit longer. And they can use the same ident for each of the team sections or admin units, or they can create different ones. It's up to them. There's nothing out there. This whole system that we have, this whole module, is optional for all the districts. So this is left up to them, but usually these balances and budgets are kept at the district level. So somebody at a district level can create these budgets for the team sections. They don't create the budgets at the team section level. They put their expenditures in at the team section level. This is our last screen. This is our transaction screen, and it's a little busy. Can you tell we've ran out of room? So Right here is where we put the transactions. They could be field purchase authorities, they could be invoices, they could be contract obligation documents. But anytime you want to pull down from those budgets and categories and appropriation objects, this is the screen we go to. And it gives a little bit of the descriptive information up here by the vendor ticket number and some of that. But it also, if you see, it has material information at the bottom, rest areas, work activities, and it also has a place to put a job number, which is a project, and a pay item, which is going to be an activity in the future for our day labor section, which is a little unique. So we try to add interfaces from some of our other places so the money doesn't get pulled down just in here, but it also can pull down our quantities from our material inventory as well. And that's how we are right now, and I'm going to let Amir take over.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. So that's where we just took the project, and these are the key requirements of this project that for developing the BOA side of it. Solution must be able to manage budget accounts. A solution must be able to establish, manage, and report budget accounts by fiscal year, location, multiple levels of account code objects, which are appropriation objects, expenditure codes, and expenditure objects and categories. And must be able to manage multiple fiscal years and the defined lapse period. Must be able to roll over the budget structure from one fiscal year to another. Transfer funds the system must be capable of handling it, and also system must be able to track and tie expenditure and cost against the budget accounts. Also, all changes in this system, changes to financial accounts values must be traceable, and there's a specific access regulation scheme in place for screens. So this is a set of key requirements that we received at the beginning, and we started developing. Where we were at the beginning of the project, basically, those of you who know our system, we have assets inventory in our system, inspections. We basically perform the work and track the costs, but it is primarily a cost-oriented system. So the budget element wasn't there and should have been added. Solution approaches that we looked into to solve this issue was interface with a standalone budget management system, so to keep budget outside our system still. But the problem was that budget management system was a system that you just saw and it's going away, so there's no actual option of interfacing with that. And then next solution obviously is interfacing between Agile and an ERP. ERP implementations, as you know, are costly implementations, need certain size of organization. IDOT definitely falls in that category. They have a plan of implementing, but it's way down the road. They can't go without a budget management system. So meanwhile, they need a budget management system. Then obviously next solution was to have this budget management solution built into our system. And basically, when even down the road the ERP kicks in, the objects and tables of this budget management solution are going to be used as the endpoint for that interface, and at least on the financial side.
What's an ERP?
Enterprise Resource Planning System. And basically, this solution is also is relatively cost efficient compared to an ERP. If an ERP is basically handling, just considering this part of the ERP, this basically has a much lower price tag. So what is this new BOA or balance of account? It's basically a system-wide, non-modular specific budget and account management system or solution. It's considered as an add-on to our actual system. It doesn't, it goes with any module, any transaction from within different functional sides of each module. So it's not a modular specific solution. Also, core functionalities that it supports: establish and maintain budget accounts, manage account balances, and tie expenditure against relevant budget accounts and report them out. Again, for those of you who have worked with our system, in our maintenance management system, we have a planning tool that plans our yearly work operation, and one byproduct of that is budget. This is just something different I wanted to distinguish here. It's just overall budget planning and management system throughout the system. More graphical representation of this. Basically, you have your users that they're doing day-to-day job in the system. They're creating all sorts of transaction repairs, material, fueling transactions, direct purchases, salt transactions, or maintenance-related transactions. And now we have these new sets of users in the system, or security profiles. They can be the same users. Security profiles in the system that they are account managers. And they establish account codes. They allocate the budget, manage the budget, and do the rollover. And also, again, another set of security profiles that can pick and choose from these transactions that are created on the cost side and post it against the budget, which during this posting process, a lot of business rules and checks are going to happen behind the scene. The transactions are going to get rejected. They pass with a warning, or they just get flat accepted. So this part is now happening inside BOA, and this whole thing is inside Agile Asset Management Suite. In order to make this happen, components that are basic building blocks and components that are in place is obviously a fiscal year list or table, or admin unit structure, which we implement as our system, which we basically put in place as a part of system module, and then objects or information that are just related to BOA. The most important one at the higher level of hierarchy is appropriation objects or A objects. Then at the lower level, we have expenditure categories or expenditure identifiers, and expenditure objects, which are a more descriptive version of expenditure categories. And it's just for description, I should say, and the budget breakdown doesn't go to that level. This is a very compact design. It doesn't have a big footprint on the actual system. As I said, you can consider it like an add-on. There are 3 setup tables that house these new objects, and also 2 main screens to manage budget. In the system itself, under Resources module for Illinois now, there is a balance of account menu, and under that we have setup tables for appropriation objects, expenditure categories, and expenditure objects. And then we have those 2 main windows, BOA allocations or budget, called BOAB, and BOA transactions, BOAT. So the screen, I'm going to go into details of each screen real quick. For defining appropriation objects, basically we have a setup table. You define the object, its code, its effective date range. You see that's a pretty wide range because these objects are going to roll over permanently. And also any comment or anything that you want to mention on that appropriation object is a simple setup table, nothing special about it. When you get to a lower hierarchy in defining these objects, which is the expenditure category, basically you define the expenditure category, and also at the same time in the same table you tie it or make the crosswalk between expenditure category and valid appropriation objects that relate to those expenditure categories, and certain admin units that can use that, and obviously the date range. And that's how expenditure categories are defined / crosswalk to create valid permutations. And the same logic for expenditure objects at the 3rd level, basically. Now that you've defined all these objects, we get into one of, basically to our main balances screen. In this screen, accounts can be created based on where you've logged in. You select that. You can select admin units that are under that admin unit that you're controlling. And the selection of, you can select also the appropriation object and the fiscal year, and you'll see your available accounts here. You can insert an account if you have the right security role, excuse me. And you see that you can put in the beginning budget, and against that beginning budget, you can start obligating fund at the lower level, at the lower half of the screen, to expenditure categories. This is where basically all the expenditures are going to hit, and if you have enough budget available, this is what's going to, the obligated budget is basically what's going to determine it. And year-to-date obligated fund is going to be rolled up from these categories for each account up here, and also year-to-date expenditure against each expenditure category, and against each appropriation object also is going to be rolled up in front of each line item. Then the next main screen is the transactions screen. Again, based on selection, based on your role, where you've logged in, and selection of a fiscal year, and the type of transactions that you want to see. This screen is going to be filtered down for you, and you can see, for example, all the transactions that are created from material management side, or transactions that are coming from repair side. So these components are in place to support following processes in the system: setting up the accounts, appropriation, fund transfer, adjustments to values and transactions, expenditure, and tying it to budget, and also account rollover, account structure rollover in each fiscal year, after each fiscal year. Ooh. Sorry. So in order to set the account, as I mentioned, you need to have right appropriation objects and expenditure categories set beforehand and crosswalk together. And when you come to this screen, you have them available, filtered down for you. You can insert a new row and use those values to create a new account. Basically, creating a new account is just inserting a row, having the fiscal year, right appropriation object, and expenditure category at the lower level. When the account is created, if you have the right security role, then you can allocate the money to it with the beginning budget. You can do it at the appropriation object level, at the higher level accounts, or you can obligate the fund to the level of expenditure category. That's what's typically happening in either central office or at the district level. So account setup and appropriating the money is just restricted down to the level of districts. And also, IDOT needed a fund transfer mechanism, and we designed it as a right-click functionality on the same screen. From the user perspective, this is a very easy functionality to use. It is very intuitive. You right-click on the source account, do the basically choose the fund transfer, use the fund transfer, right-click, and then you define your amount, and you define your destination or recipient account, and just push it through. But behind the scene, a lot of stuff are happening. All the business rules related to, for example, if this account can go negative or it cannot, or if this amount of fund, for example, can pass the district boundaries or this admin unit, all these are checked against business rules, and that transaction can pass or can be stopped. Also, again, behind the scene, there are 8 different categories of fund transfer transactions that are handled by this right-click. So, for example, if you want to transfer fund from unobligated fund of an account in the same admin unit to another to basically unobligated fund of another account in the same admin unit. It is one sort of transaction. If you want to go from obligated fund of an account in a given admin unit to obligated fund of another account in another admin unit, that's a totally different transaction. You need to basically take the money out of obligations and then take the money out of the beginning budget and then have the positive transactions also posted on the recipient side. So there are 8 different types of transactions that are handled behind this right-click action. And in terms of tracking, we had 2 options. So every transfer transaction can be broken down into a whole bunch of summations and deductions. We could have posted those simple transactions into our standard transaction screen and tie them together with the unique identifier of this transfer transaction, which is a more visual way of doing it. The user can see all of them, and basically they can filter for that transfer ID and find what accounts actually have been hit. And also another way of doing it was to identify the fields that are touched by each transaction, because all these fields in the financial sides are on full audit. So we are tracking what was the previous value, what's the new value, who changed it, and at what date, what time, down to the level of seconds. So basically fields that are touched can be tracked, and then we have a report design that when you give it the transfer ID, it will basically find the transfer path for you and give you basically the details of the transfer, where the money started and where it hit. Adjustments in the system are at 2 levels. First, the ones that are at the value level. These are typically handled by higher level security roles in the budget allocation screen. If somebody wants to edit the beginning budget of an account, they should have a certain security role, and all these values are on audit. They simply go in, change the value to the right one. And on another level, if, however, let's say there is a wrong transaction, or at the end of the year, there is a need for adjustment transactions in the transaction screen, transactions that are approved and already posted cannot be changed. So the user, again with appropriate role, needs to enter the transaction screen and post the adjustment transaction, which can be a positive or negative transaction, to take care of the issues there. And expenditure, which is the main purpose of having this system in place. I mean, we want to track expenditures against the budget. There are different sources that in the system that can create expenditure transaction. It is designed, it is basically customized for IDOT, but it's not limited to these sources. It can, as I said, these sources of transaction can be expanded to any module, any transaction at any level. One that is currently IDOT is using is material management, receipt, releases, and sales, and some other transactions. On equipment repair, direct cost, that is basically day card, is fitting into the budget, and those transactions are posted against the budget. And equipment direct purchases like fuel, oil, stuff like that are going against the budget, so are going to be posted. And IDOT has this contractor body they call day labor. Operation larger than certain range is given to them. So those folks need to post all their transactions, all their maintenance operation transactions against the budget. So that's another source of receiving financial transactions against the budget. And also direct entries, as I mentioned, if it is a direct invoice or it is an adjustment transaction, is another source of transaction. So let's pick one of these sources and see how it works. Those of you who have used our system, this is a familiar screen. It's our material management screen, and it's part of this resources module, so it comes as a base. Typically, most clients have it. I have created a dummy salt receipt transaction down there, and I blow it up a little bit. So it is a regular receipt transaction with all the information that are needed on those sort of transaction, with the exception that we have added 5 fields to handle the budget side. And those are basically built to admin unit, which defines which admin unit's budget this thing is going to go against. And as you move from up and basically down to the right, these values that you enter filter the next value that you can get based on value permutations that you have defined at the beginning. So built to admin unit, expenditure object, expenditure category, and appropriation objects are filled appropriately. And then there is a checkbox of sending to BOA. So if you mark that, this transaction will be pushed with the trigger to the transaction as screens and will be automatically closed. There are some instances in some transactions that checkbox is there, but the certain roles don't have access to it, so it's mandatory for them, or we make it fully automatic. So basically, the transaction always is going to go to BOA no matter what. These transactions are not posted against BOA upon just putting this checkbox in. When the actual transaction is accepted, the trigger is going to act and push it against the budget. And if you decide to unapprove the same transaction, then on the budget side, it's going to be paired with this mirror transaction with negative value, so it doesn't affect the basically the budget. And before I go there, you notice that the footprint of balance of account on each existing screen is very minimal. We only add 5 fields and 1 trigger on the table, and we don't change any process, any layout, anything like that. We don't reshuffle anything. So by putting those on any screen, you can tie it to the budget side of the implementation. Sorry? Yes, of course.
Why would you not want to send any transactions
To BOA? The reason is some of them are just like, for example, repair that is done in-house. They are not going against the budget that the IDOT, in this case, is managing in this framework. It's internal agency's budget, and this system is not basically dealing with that. So internal employees' budget and internal material, stuff like that, are not part of this budget. That's the reason. And Robin can elaborate on that.
There are also admin units or districts that they decide that they would rather, they get a monthly invoice from a vendor or something, they would rather enter it directly into that BOAT stream. So they don't want to interface from the salt side. They'd rather, instead of taking their salt receipts and moving it from material stream, they wait until they get everything, the invoice for what the invoice at the end of the month, and then they go and enter it all directly to the balance of account stream. That, it's just, they have the option to do that, and they have their functions and how they process each individual to the district. So we want to still give them that option.
Any other question? Okay, and as I mentioned, we have direct entries to the balance of account transaction screen. This is limited to certain roles and certain A objects and ECATs, and needs transactions that are entered this way they need manual closing and are not automatically closed. These are typically, as I mentioned again, these are adjustment transactions or basically invoices that need to be paid directly. So in our transaction screen, if you pick a transaction that is directly entered, it is basically a very flat screen, so all the fields from different sources, let's say material, repair, these kind of fields that need to be sent to this table are all there. Each transaction will only carry values that it needs to carry, and it has fiscal year, admin unit, A object, ECAT, and appropriation, and and basically, yeah, I mentioned E object as common fields, common budget-related fields on all transactions. So when they insert a transaction directly, they just fill the fields that they need to do and fill the budget-related fields and close the transaction, which is a very important action because that's when the transaction is going to get posted against the budget and deplete the accounts. This screen is a really busy screen. There are a lot of records in there, so different filters are in place to make it even work. And every 2 years, basically only the transactions from this fiscal year and the previous are available in this screen. The rest are available and archived for reporting. So are not shown on the screen if, the transactions from 2 years back are not shown on the screen. How to review transaction in this busy screen. If it is, as I said, there are many user-defined filters in place. So user can define their own filter and just look through the lens that they want to use and evaluate transactions. But sometimes logics that they are looking for an error or discrepancy is not immediately visible or can't be tracked visually. In that case, we have designed some exception reports that go after a certain logic and pulls the transactions that are not going to pass that check. Transaction closure from source documents like material management or repair order or maintenance side are automatic. Upon approval of that transaction, they're going to be closed on the financial side, meaning that the budget, they're going to get posted against the budget and deplete the budget account. And for direct entries, it should be manual. So basically, if you have an open transaction and somebody else closes their transactions against the same budget line item before you, they're going to hit the budget first, and that transaction might get rejected because there is not enough budget in the account. Approval and unapproval of transaction, I mentioned that there are positive transactions and negative transactions that are going to be paired with each other with a unique identifier, so we can track them. Another process that we have is fiscal year account rollover. There's not much to show on this. It is mostly automated system job. At the beginning of each fiscal year, prior to the beginning of each fiscal year, we have designed the system job that IDOT runs, and it identifies all the valid accounts from the last year and rolls them over to the new fiscal year with the beginning balance of 0. And so there's some manual work to be done to get these accounts up and running for expenditure. One is obviously for the personnel with appropriate role to go in and set the beginning budget according to the new rules and regulations. And also manual adjustment might need to happen. Some accounts might need to be removed. Some accounts might need to be added. After this happens, the account structure is ready and good to go. And, but they're not available yet in the system. There is an activation-deactivation mechanism, which can be automatic. For IDOT, we've chosen to go down the route of automatic activation and deactivation. For example, the new fiscal year accounts are going to be activated automatically at the beginning of the fiscal year, and the old fiscal year accounts are going to be deactivated at the beginning of the new fiscal year plus 90 days. Or it can be a manual activation, deactivation checkbox for accounts of each fiscal year. Brief overview of key features of this design. It is overarching and non-modular specific account management system. From anywhere at any level in the system, day card, work order, project level, transaction can be sent to this account management, budget management solution. It is a very flexible design, and it is configuration only, meaning that we haven't used any custom Java window, nothing like that, no JavaScript. All there is just tables, views, some Groovy scripts, and triggers, or database triggers. And it has minimum footprint on already existing screens. So as I mentioned before, it's not going to affect already existing processes and screens pretty much at all. and it is capable of, because of its structure, it is capable of accommodating complex financial rules and can comply with the financial rules that are available in different organizations. With that, I'll open it to any question if there's any.
I have a question for Ron. So are you using this strictly within the fleet and road maintenance modules of your organization, or is this basically the accounting system of record for the entire department?
It's only for our bureau, and it's only used for the people that currently use the MMI system now. And, our financial system of record is another mainframe system. And what we see this is we see this as our budget. We wanted to know how much is allocated, how much has gone out. If they take a field purchase authority, we need to know that money's out of their budget. So not how much has actually been spent and paid to those vendors, but actually what's obligated to, out of the budget. So we see the official financial system, FOA, as our bank statement from the bank, and we see our BOA as our checkbook. So we know what's out of our budget before it's actually been paid.
Do you use it for, like, next fiscal year, like allocation projections?
No, they don't use it for projections as much as they can't enter in until the next fiscal year until the rollover's been done, and we don't always know what those budgets are. Because the districts will get allocated their money by a object in the districts from the Central Bureau of Operations. And we can't actually give them those budgets until we have a budget for the whole department. So sometimes, like last year, it takes a while to get that money, and sometimes they'll want to set them up, but they don't put any money in there, and they'll run zero balances for their beginning so they have a negative in there to track their obligated funds until they get a balance in there. So that's why it has to be flexible enough to do that. So we can still track how much money has been spent, even though we don't project forward or forecast, we still need to track what's been obligated.
Is the project creating better executive buy-in on what it is for?
I think that the whole Agile, every module that we have with Agile will do that. We have really good support from our director, and because they have moved up within the department from the districts, so they have used the system before, and they know how old it is, and they're very forward thinking and have vision, and they know what they want to see. So we have really good buy-in from executive sponsors.
All right, any other questions? We got some time? All right, thanks. Mayor, Robin, we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.